Alam mo, huwag ka masyadong touchy sa issues because always there will be pro and cons.
More than 2 months into the country's enforced quarantine protocols, Secretary Duque admits gaps in the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The president, meanwhile, stressed that he is not in favor of reopening schools this year if there is still no vaccine for COVID-19. But his spokesman and the health chief spoke in different tunes. ABS-CBN says it will be forced to release a list of employees who will be terminated if their franchise will not be granted. The network's executives announced this during the House committee hearing on the TV giant's franchise bid. And the Philippine Obstetrical and Gynecological Society wants the government to shoulder the cost for COVID-19 testing for pregnant women. Studies show that up to 4 out of 10 asymptomatic pregnant patients tested positive for the disease. No less than Health Secretary Francisco Duque III admits gaps in the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But amid criticisms hounding the health chief, President Duterte advises him to loosen up. Los Baños with the report.
With all the criticism surrounding the Health Department's COVID-19 response, the President has one advice to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III.
Alam mo, huwag ka masyadong touchy sa issues because always there will be pro and cons.
And barely a day after President Duterte's speech, the health chief admits in a Senate hearing the challenges being faced by his department in dealing with the health crisis. This comes after Senator Bongo, the president's closest ally in the Senate, said that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the perennial gaps in our health system. Duque acknowledged the lapses in the country's testing capacity, as well as quarantine facilities and procurement of personal protective equipment.
Ang maluwanag na puwang o kakulangan po na ating po natuklasan bunsod ng COVID pandemic ay ang ating po mga testing facilities. Yan po ang talagang number one weakness po sa lukuyang sistema ng pangkalusugan.
When it comes to building testing centers, the health chief said they had to prioritize NCR as it has been the epicenter of the disease. In the same hearing, Duque expressed support to alternative learning platforms for the upcoming school year. However, he believes it is safe for students to return to classrooms come August 24, as long as they follow strict safety protocols.
Siguraduhin lamang na ang lahat ng ating standards for health ay nakatalaga. Physical distancing, frequent washing of the hands, ito pong disinfection ng mga silid-aralan. Marami po tayong mga measures na katulad ng fever scanning or thermal scanning.
This is in contrast with the president's position that face-to-face classes should not at all resume until such time that the COVID-19 vaccine becomes available. But if senators were to be asked, the safety of the students should be prioritized. They say that the resumption of classes can always be moved to a later date. Senator Risa Ontiveros, who is also a mother, said she cannot imagine risking the life of her children just so they could attend school. Senator Sonny Angara agrees, insisting that August may be too soon for students to be back in school. He then suggests to further move resumption of classes to later months, but this would need legislation. For News 5, Los Baños, we are One News.
President Duterte himself opposes the opening of classes until there is an available vaccine against COVID-19. But his spokesman later on clarified the chief executive was only referring to physical classes. Marlene Alcaide tells us more.
No opening of classes until there is a vaccine. This was President Duterte's straightforward statement during the Interagency Task Force's meeting on Monday night on the country's COVID-19 situation. In a televised address to the nation during the meeting, the president says it is useless to talk about the reopening of classes for now.
Without the vaccine, it's really danger. It spells disaster. So, mask, hugas kamay. Mga bata, wag muna. Yung opening ng classes, that's a very... I will not allow the opening of classes na magdikit-dikit yung mga bata. No?
The president reiterated the importance of the safety of students at this time of pandemic.
Unless I am sure that they are really safe, it's useless to be talking about opening of classes. That's probably bad. Para sa akin, bakuna muna.
Some parents understand the chief executive's concern.
Pinag-usapan namin ng misis ko, sabi ko, wag na lang muna. Pwede naman patigilin muna yung bata, patigilin muna namin. Para kahit maiwanan muna ng isang taon para kaligtasan lang eh. Kasi buhay ng anak namin yung nakasalalay din dyan eh.
While there are some who doubt the feasibility of blended learning, which includes the usage of online platforms.
Sangayon ako, hindi pwedeng magbukas ng klase habang walang bakuna. Kasi halimbawa, online yung klase, katulad ko mahirap lang ako. Wala akong kakayanan bumili ng internet. Gadget para sa mga anak ko.
The Education Department announced last April 30 that the incoming school year will officially open on August 24, either physically or virtually, depending on the situation. Secretary Leonor Briones, however, noted that they will not require full physical attendance and stressed that online learning is still a viable option. Following Duterte's pronouncement, Education Undersecretary Nepomuceno Malaluan in a text message said they need to clarify the matter first before issuing a statement. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque meanwhile clarified the chief executive's remarks.
Ibig sabihin po niyan, habang wala pang bakuna at habang wala pa tayo sa new normal, yung wala na pong community quarantine, hindi pa rin po tayo magkakaroon ng face-to-face classroom na mga klase.
Malacanang also backs the DepEd on the possible imposition of blended learning.
Ayon po kay Secretary Briones ng DepEd, gagamitin po natin ang telebisyon, ang radyo at ang internet para ipagpatuloy po ang edukasyon ng ating mga kabataan.
For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
The Health Department reports 350 new COVID-19 cases in the Philippines. This brings the total number of COVID-19 cases to over 14,600 in the country, the highest number of daily cases since May 8. The SARS-like disease killed 13 people in the past 24 hours, bringing the country's death toll to over 880. Meanwhile, 89 patients recovered from COVID-19 on Tuesday. So far, more than 3,400 people in the country have gotten better from the disease. Almost 160 patients in the country have committed to join the United Nations initiative aimed to test the effectiveness of a possible vaccine against COVID-19. 157 patients in 24 hospitals have signed up for the World Health Organization's Solidarity Trial. This was bared in President Rodrigo Duterte's 9th report to Congress on the government's COVID-19 response efforts. The participating institutions, however, were not listed in the report. On Saturday, the Interagency Task Force has given the green light for the Philippines' planned participation in the said trials as recommended by the Department of Science and Technology. The Interior Department has received 50,000 applicants for the Balik Probinsya program, which facilitates the return of Filipinos from Metro Manila to the provinces. In Tuesday's Laging Handa briefing, Secretary Eduardo Año says they are still finishing the implementing rules and regulations and figuring out the modes of livelihood assistance the beneficiaries can apply for. In the same briefing, Año admitted that Ormoc City was not given enough time to prepare for the returning OFWs in the city, citing it as an isolated case. On Monday, City Mayor Richard Gomez expressed frustration over the lack of coordination on the initiative. He says he was surprised to see repatriated OFWs arriving in Leyte on Monday without prior notice from these agencies. The mayor adds that he merely received a text Monday morning from DILG Region 8 and OWA regarding the arrival of the OFWs at the Tacloban Airport. Meanwhile, due to the influx of applications, the National Housing Authority, the agency tasked to work on the program, reportedly ran out of forms earlier today. The NHA advised those who are interested to apply to make use of their online services instead. We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, ABS-CBN fears that it will be forced to release a list of employees who will be terminated if their franchise will not be granted. And the Philippine National Police sets up its own testing facility for police officers in Camp Crame. Keep it here on One News for more big stories. I'm Jess De Los Santos and you're watching The Big Story. This just in, all the 17 Metro Manila mayors favor the shift to general community quarantine for the National Capital Region. In a media briefing this evening, MMDA General Manager Garcia announced that NCR mayors are unanimously acceptable to the shift to GCQ. He says they will await the decision of the Interagency Task Force or the IATF on the matter. Garcia adds that all mayors are 100% prepared for the new setup should the IATF accept the recommendation. Metro Manila is currently under a modified ECQ until May 31st. The Interior Department earlier said that selective barangay lockdowns may be implemented in NCR once the MECQ is lifted on June 1. ABS-CBN executives faced House lawmakers today for the hearing on the network's franchise renewal bid. The TV network says it will be forced to release a list of employees who will be terminated if their franchise will not be granted. Let's get more details from Ria Fernandez reporting live from Batasang Pambansa. Ria.
Just during today's hearing, ABS-CBN expressed its hope that they will be granted with a franchise as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will have no choice but to lay off some of their employees. ABS-CBN said it subscribes to the saying, "The law is the law." However, its executives believe that the media network has not violated any law. With this, the ABS-CBN President and CEO Carlo Katigbak appeals to lawmakers during the House hearing on their franchise renewal bid to allow them to go back on air. Katigbak clarified that they're not doing this to be pitied, but to protect the welfare of thousands of their employees. Following the order of the National Telecommunications Commission, Katigbak said they have already incurred heavy losses due to the network's closure. This will force them to release a list of employees who will be terminated from their jobs if their franchise will not be granted.
Sana makita po ng Kongreso na nasa kapangyarihan ninyo ang kinabukasan nila. Sa tingin po namin, wala pong dahilan kung bakit hindi pwedeng ibigay ang prangkisa ng ABS-CBN.
Katigbak capped off his speech with a video showing the impact of ABS-CBN leaving free broadcast on ordinary Filipinos. But Deputy Speaker Dante Marcoleta matched this presentation with a viral bawal lumabas video of a kapamilya actress. The Solon stressed that the ABS-CBN did not comply with the law, making it not worthy to go back on air. One by one, Marcoleta discussed the alleged violations of this station. First is the network's operation beyond the 50-year limit for franchise as stated in the Constitution. Marcoleta also questioned how the Lopez family regained ABS-CBN from the government after martial law. Even though ABS-CBN and even some agencies cleared the network's issues, Marcoleta also cited controversies such as Gabby Lopez's alleged American citizenship, as well as other allegations against the company, such as foreign ownership, unpaid taxes, and labor violations. These will be tackled one by one in the succeeding hearings starting Monday, 9 a.m. Meanwhile, the House Committees on Legislative Franchises and Good Government will invite a new Solicitor General Jose Calida. The official earlier declined appearing at Congress due to sub judice rule, as the case of ABS-CBN is already lodged at the Supreme Court.
So very, very clear that the champion of the exposing the alleged violations of ABS-CBN is Solicitor General. That doesn't exclude other oppositors who have been interviewed on specific alleged violations. I don't think we can explain today sa atin publiko ang sub judice rule na claim ni Solicitor General Calida. But I just like to make 2 points. First, kung ganun ang interpretasyon ng sub judice rule, walang hearing na magaganap sa Kongreso.
JES Speaker Alan Cayetano said it will be better for Solgen Calida to show up in the next hearing. Otherwise, the lawmakers will be forced to ask about his stand on the ABS-CBN franchise renewal bid during the budget hearing. JES?
Thank you for those updates. Ria Fernandez reporting to us live from Quezon City. Frontliners are among the most vulnerable to the threats of COVID-19. That's why the Philippine National Police decided to take matters to their own hands and installed a testing facility for law enforcers in Camp Crame. Pat Mangune tells us more.
The PNP has inaugurated its own reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction or RT-PCR testing facility at the Crime Laboratory inside PNP's national headquarters in Camp Crame. The opening was originally scheduled last April, but it was pushed back by further safety requirements of the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine and the Department of Health. The move is seen to help fast-track the testing of police frontliners who risk exposure to COVID-19 while manning checkpoints and enforcing the law amid lockdown.
This facility further contributes to our efforts to have a self-sustaining capability in addressing COVID-19 cases within the PNP organization. With this testing facility, we can aggressively push for testing so that we can locate, isolate, and care for COVID-19 carriers and those who are sick in order to keep our PNP offices and our communities safe.
PNP's RT-PCR testing center has a capacity of 150 tests per day.
Ang uunahin natin dito ay of course yung mga police frontliners natin na kabilang sa kategoring probable at suspect na mga patients. Kaya natin sila inuuna upang mabigyan natin sila ng pagkakataon naman na maka-fully recover at mabigyan ng karampatang medical assistance. Kapag natapos na ang lahat ng mga pulis natin, ay saka pa lamang maaaring i-consider ang dependents, mga family members, at later on, maaari na rin ma-consider ang general public upon endorsement ng Department of Health.
The PNP says it is also planning to set up testing centers for police officers in Visayas and Mindanao. Latest data show that there are now 281 confirmed COVID-19 cases among police ranks. 4 cops have already died, while 117 have so far recovered. The PNP is also looking at 739 probable cases and 594 suspected cases. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
Authorities will no longer implement standard checkpoints along EDSA once Metro Manila shifts to general community quarantine. In an interview with One News's Agenda, MMDA EDSA Traffic Manager Bong Nebrija says the PNP Highway Patrol Group will instead implement modified checkpoints via motorcycle riding officers. The traffic czar adds that the MMDA is in talks with the Department of Transportation about reducing bus routes on EDSA.
It will be a lot worse if we would set up a checkpoint on a GCQ, because there, just like what I said a while ago, there will be more people authorized to go out of their residences because of their work. So I think this will remain, that there will be no more checkpoints on EDSA. The last time that we talked, it's the single bus route on EDSA, reducing the 96 bus routes all over Manila to 29. And single bus route on EDSA, they will be seeing a lot more buses than public utility jeepneys.
These are the other big stories today. Metro Manila Police Chief Major General de Bolsinas oversaw the simulation exercise for the LRT Line 2's resumption of operations ahead of a possible shift to general community quarantine by June 1. The activity included embarkation and disembarkation from Recto to Cubao Station, as well as the train's disinfection after it was vacated at the last stop. The LRTA estimates that from its regular 5.5 million passengers a month, they will drop to 450,000 once the operations resume under GCQ.
Today we launched
A U.S. biotechnology firm has started the Phase 1 clinical trial of a COVID-19 vaccine candidate in Australia. Novavax has enrolled the trial's first participants with preliminary results slated for July. It is one of the several biotech companies racing to develop a vaccine against the SARS-CoV-like disease. The Tourism Department has identified around 50,000 rooms in various accommodation establishments for repatriated overseas Filipino workers. Based on President Duterte's latest report to Congress on the government's COVID-19 response efforts, the DOT screened and identified over 700 hotels nationwide which have allocated more than 44,000 rooms for repatriated OFWs. Out of this figure, around 22,000 rooms are available for occupancy as of May 21st. The agency has also reached out to more than 900 non-accredited accommodation establishments to temporarily operate as quarantine facilities. They have agreed to allot around 6,500 rooms. Around 42,000 OFWs are expected to return until next month. We'll be back with more big stories after the break. Stay with us here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos and you're watching The Big Story. The Philippine Obstetrical and Gynecological Society wants the government to shoulder the cost for COVID-19 testing for pregnant women. The group also asks the Health Department to include pregnant women in the country's expanded COVID-19 testing. Shaila Francisco has a story.
It's difficult for Angie to be 7 months pregnant while being under community quarantine. The companies Angie and her husband work for implemented a no-work, no-pay scheme during the quarantine period. She then had no choice but to miss a checkup session last April. With mounting expenses on vitamins and more frequent sessions, she's also worried that she might shoulder costs for a COVID-19 test.
Sobrang bigat. Kasi tawag dito, magte-test ka ng ganyan. Tapos, ang dami niyo pang gastusin. No work, no pay pa. Wala talaga, walang panggastos. Sobrang bigat para sa akin. Dapat, kailangan provide nila yung panggastos.
The Philippine Obstetrical and Gynecological Society has recommended for pregnant women nearing their due date to undergo testing for COVID-19. They say studies from the U.S. and international organizations show that up to 30 to 40% of asymptomatic pregnant patients tested positive for the SARS-like disease. The group recommends pregnant women to undergo testing as early as 37 weeks of pregnancy or up to 1 week before the delivery. This will allow hospitals to prepare the facilities, equipment and PPEs and prevent transmission.
We could prepare for the newborn care. So if a mother is identified to be positive, then she will be given enough time to prepare for how she's going to decide regarding the care of her newborn, decision for the infant feeding.
The group recognized challenges including delay in test results and even the cost of COVID-19 tests. Hence, the group is asking DOH to include a test costs around 8,000 pesos.
If they are included in the expanded testing department memo, then these women should not pay anymore. Covered sila dapat ng PhilHealth.
Currently, PhilHealth says they cover costs of some pregnant patients depending on the clinical assessment.
Meron kaming question ngayon sa pending query kami, written query with DOH, sino ang papasok sa vulnerable. So that can be one category kasi for the pregnant women natin.
In case the Philippine Obstetrics and Gynecological Society requires pregnant women to undergo COVID-19 tests, the health department assures it can do the testing since they are part of the vulnerable population to the disease. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
The Trade Department is studying the possibility of partially reopening restaurants for dine-in services. But Secretary Ramon Lopez says they will first check if these establishments can apply health protocols to ensure the safety of diners. Lynn Olavario reports.
Since the enforcement of the community quarantine protocols across the country, most fast food chains and restaurants have been allowed to offer takeout and delivery services. As for fine dining and experiential restaurants that don't usually offer takeaways and deliveries, going back to business is still a big challenge. And with lockdown measures still in place, the only option left for these establishments is to adapt. The Gallery by Chela and BGC decided to open this weekend and offered a new delivery and takeaway menu.
To give a dining experience is first, but we need to reinvent ourselves. We have no choice. If you asked me this question 3-4 months ago, I will say this is not possible. But you need to adjust to the situation.
Strict safety measures are being implemented at the restaurant. Beginning as soon as the staff gets off the elevator, his bags and belongings will be sanitized. Clean clothes will be donned. And temperature will be checked.
Basically, we don't want anything from outside go inside of the restaurant.
Even the raw foods such as vegetables are being cleaned. These measures, as well as the biodegradable packaging of their takeaways, entail additional costs for them. But for Chef Chela, the mindset right now is really just to survive.
At the end of the day, our goal is all the same, to make sure that the business is alive and in the near future, to make some money.
The Trade Department has recommended an accreditation system to the IATF, where restaurant owners may apply for a permit to offer dine-in services.
So maybe in the next 2 weeks, pag magpe-prepare sila, yung mga ready na, pwede tayo magkaroon ng accreditation system. So ganun ho, I think yung intention natin ho lahat dito ay mabuksan na sa madaling panahon, pero the safest way then.
Secretary Mon Lopez notes that the complete guidelines that will be required for dine-in services and the accreditation system will be announced once approved by the IATF. Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez Jr. sees no problem for as long as health guidelines and safety measures are strictly followed.
Sa dining siguro, pagka nakita natin naging maganda yung performance ng ating paghihigpit at saka maganda yung naging condition natin, pwede tayo mag-open ng 25% or 30%. And then later, pagka lalong gumanda yung conditions ng naging mababa ang COVID yung transmission, pwede nating i-open up na 30% up to 50%.
For News 5, Lynn Olivario, We Are One News.
Let's take a look at how other countries have been coping with the global health crisis. Peruvian President Martin Vizcarra claims that COVID-19 infections in the Latin American nation have reached a plateau. He says Peru will see a gradual but slow decrease in new cases in the coming days. So far, the country has reported more than 123,000 COVID-19 infections and over 3,000 deaths. On Sunday, the World Health Organization tagged South America as the world's new COVID-19 epicenter. Grave diggers at a city in Bolivia are working double time amid the influx of COVID-19 deaths. Trinidad, one of the poorest areas in the country's Amazon region, is among the worst hit by the ongoing pandemic. Local media has reported only 65 COVID deaths, but hundreds of new crosses have sprung up in the freshly dug dirt at the city's cemetery. Overall, Bolivia has more than 6,000 infections and 250 deaths. And several countries can learn a thing or two from Japan as the country continues to recover from the global health crisis. Many residents welcome Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's move to lift the state of emergency in Tokyo and 4 other areas. Despite the fall in cases, Japanese residents vow to remain alert for the virus. The Malabon LGU launches a mobile application to expedite contact tracing in the city. Malabon's real-time COVID-19 figures may now be viewed on computers and smartphones. Also shown in the app are areas with the highest COVID-19 cases. Barangay health workers may now input data and COVID-related information gathered from their respective areas. The LGU says Malabon residents need not to worry as infected persons will not be named in compliance with the Data Privacy Act. The health info may be accessed on malaboncity.itcbs.net. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Good evening.